Okay, welcome back to. Sorry if anyone just joined and it cut you off. Apparently, there are some connection issues between LinkedIn and StreamYard, so I'll take a look at that afterwards. But I just wanted to say thank you for 2020. We're here. We're nearly at the end of 2020. I'm not going to talk about unprecedented times and all of that good stuff. Um, it's it's just been a really tricky one, hasn't it? And as I was thinking about the podcast that usually goes live Monday, 7 a.m., I didn't want to do one this week in terms of the usual format of having a guest and talking through whatever it is we're going to talk about, because I know people are winding down for the holidays, and I wanted to make sure that we hit January hard and fast. So that episode is going to come on the start of January, but I didn't want to just leave it empty. So you've just got me, I'm afraid, and I hope that's okay. So I wanted to just recap a bit of Career Dad 2020 and just to thank every single one of you who has either joined the live or commented on a video or listened to a podcast, or in particular worked with me on Not Quite Coaching, or maybe I've worked with your organization and given a talk or run a workshop. And I just think despite the challenges that we've had globally, it's just been a fantastic year for Career Dad, and that wouldn't have been possible without all of your support. And I was just actually looking through the podcast, because the podcast has been running for just over a year now. It launched on the 15th of October last year. And I was having a look at the stats, which I've got here, and nearly 11,500 downloads of that podcast since we've launched, which, I just think back to the first interview that I did with Ashley. And, Ashley's a fantastic person to interview. And just looking back at how far that podcast has come, some of the fantastic people that I've just been really thankful and grateful to speak to. And none of that would have been possible without your support. And now that I never went into this to really make money, which is funny because I remember speaking to because I did want to set this up as a business when I got advice to do so. And I remember speaking to my accountant, and she said, what would you forecast for the, your annual kind of income from Career Dad? And I was like, not really fussed. So you can't say that. You have to, if this is a business, it has to. But just even now that just the little bits of money that Career Dad has made, it's just paid for the website hosting for 2 years. The podcast pays for itself now. It really is just my time, which I'm more than happy to give if it helps people who are parents or not parents, or who whatever situation that you might be in. So that was what I wanted to do today, was just to say thank you. And I just talked about the podcast stats. I was having a look at where do people listen. 20% within Europe, that kind of makes sense. 14% in North America, 3% in Australia. We're a truly global podcast, which I think is just fantastic. And again, thank you. I think as well, what has been nuts, and some of you are on this kind of TikTok journey, but I started off TikTok with a lot of questions of why am I even doing this? And now as of about an hour ago, just shy of 35,000 followers there, and these are people who are just wanting to hear about things from a dad's perspective. This stuff is valid, so it's just been great. And this is going to be a very short live and a very short podcast. So the things that I wanted to reflect on, and there was just one really. There's actually just one big one, and it's because it comes up time and time again, and it's to do with time. And I've been quite vocal about this in terms of we all have the same 24 hours in a day, and if you haven't achieved something, it's not to do with you not having time, it's that you didn't have discipline. And I've never really bought into that. Pre-pandemic, I didn't buy into it, and post-pandemic, absolutely not. And so what I actually wanted to just spend a few minutes on was auditing our own time, because it keeps cropping up. And what I mean by that is we all have 24 hours in a day, but we don't have the same 24 hours in a day. And we all don't have the luxury of how we choose to spend that 24 hours. So if I give you an example, my 24 hours will look very, very different to your 24 hours, which will look very different to someone else's 24 hours. That kind of makes sense, but you could be saying, well, damn, we all have choice as to what we do with that time. But do we? Because do I choose to not get up and feed my kids and dress them and make sure they're ready for the day? Arguably, I could choose not to do that. However, I think, let alone what my wife and how I would feel about that. There's social services and there are protections in place to make sure that doesn't really happen. Whereas someone who, might not have kids, might not have a partner, might live by themselves, I'm not saying they have any easier by any stretch of the imagination, but their 24 hours will look different. And so where I get really caught up on is when people start to preach about how if you're not using your time effectively, it's because you lack discipline or you lack motivation. That might be true, but it also might be that you're just trying to survive and that you don't have the same level of choice. If you're a carer for an elderly relative, someone could say, well, you're choosing to do that. But I would argue that is someone that has not got as much lived experience as the person who is the carer. However, I think the root cause of why people say that is because it's a vehicle to create change. And again, what I mean is that it is by getting you to address maybe your procrastination or whatever it might be, addressing things that are stopping you from doing things that you want to, then some sort of message around we all have the same 24 hours might be useful. Now, where I come to and what I talk about actually through Not Quite Coaching, a lot of one-to-one conversations I'm having at the moment are about auditing your own time. So we have 24 hours within a day, but as we've said, your 24 will look different to my 24, look different to someone else's 24. But all we can do is audit our time. And even when I started Career Dad, I already have quite a full-on full-time job. I have 2 kids and a wife. And I've got things that I want to do outside of all of those things. I like my golf. I like my snowboarding. I like my video games. I like playing the guitar. There are things that I want to do for me. I like running, cycling, not so much at the moment. But when I wanted to start Career Dad, I had to audit my own time. And there are 3 really good, well, there is one really good technique that I used to do that I just wanted to share with you because you might find it useful. And what I did was to put the activities that I did into one of 3 categories. So either things that I do not want to give up, things that I cannot give up, and everything else. So things that I did not want to give up, I was unwilling to give up, is time with my kids, time as a family, and that was kind of pretty much it. Like they're kind of a non-negotiable thing, right? And then there are things that I just cannot give up, regardless of whether I want to or not. So like work, I can't just stop doing work. That would end pretty badly. But then you've got everything else. When you start detailing out that list of and genuinely like sleep, exercise, downtime, when you've got those things that are negotiable, and then you add to them the things that you want to do, like starting a podcast, starting a website, whatever it is, it's then just figuring out where they sit in the hierarchy. And so if you get to a position where you go, you've almost got your list of things that are interchangeable, and you've got all the things you currently do and the things that you want to do, and they're in the order that you feel about them now, and you draw the line in kind of time management, and you go, actually, everything that I want to do is currently what I'm doing, then that's cool. That's an informed decision. You're making that choice. But for me, I looked at my list and I went, do you know what? I'm gonna take a hit on sleep for a bit. I'm gonna take a hit on exercise for a bit. And in the time that I get back from doing those things, I'm going to start a podcast and start a website. I'm not saying that they're the right things to do. I'm just saying that's what I did. And I did for that moment in time because that's what was most important to me at that time. So when you have those 3 columns and you're able to audit your own time, then you're only accountable for yourself, and you can cut out that noise of how we all have the same 24 hours and whatever it might be. You can just audit your own time and your own self. And so again, with my example, instead of going to bed at 11 at night, I went to bed about 1 in the morning most days, and I didn't go to the gym for about 6 months. Now, that I'm not saying it's healthy, and I'm not saying it's sustainable, but that was what I was happy to do to start building up something else. Now it's very different. My sleeping's a bit off anyway, but that's a whole separate thing. And up until the last few weeks, I was at least out running quite regularly, or just doing exercise or playing video games. I'm back into playing a lot of video games, and that's cool because it's an informed choice. And so what I would just say is, if you are someone that is wanting to do things a little bit differently, or you're wanting to do something new, or whatever it might be, audit your own time and just be really honest with yourself. And whatever decision that you make for that moment, if a week later it doesn't work for you, it is within your gift to change it. It's all you. Don't worry what anyone else is going to say. If I turn around on this podcast and I said, thank you so much for 2020. Here are all the great stats. We've had all these listeners, but I'm stopping now. If that's because I wanted to do it, doesn't really matter. So if someone else says, oh, so your podcast didn't work because you decided to stop, it's, well, no, I just got bored. By the way, that's not the case. And sorry if that is sad news that this podcast is continuing. But, I just think you only have to be accountable for yourself. So we'll leave it there. I just want to say thank you again so much for supporting me personally, and also Career Dad. Again, even the Career Dad LinkedIn page, people said to me, don't start a business page for Career Dad. No one follows business pages anyway. And I think we're nearly up to 600 followers on the business page of Career Dad, which is nuts. So I just think I just really love doing this. I want to look at some new things for next year. There are some exciting things that are too early stages to be talking about now. But I think 2021 is going to be a good year for Career Dad. And once again, thank you for just being a part of it. I couldn't do it without the support, and just to know that it actually makes a difference for people is just great. So with that, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and we will see you on the other side. Take care.